third annual climate conference for the Sarasota Climate Adaptation Center is beginning soon. It's focusing on the triple threat from water and the emergence of the climate economy. And I will be speaking at the event with this man here, the CEO of the Climate Adaptation Center and NOAA scientist, Bob Bunting. Welcome back for the umpteenth time.
Well, Marco, it's always such a pleasure to be with you. This guy really knows his weather.
Thank you, and you really know your climate, so that's a good tag team. That's a good tag team. And we got to say, climate, it's all about the long-term trends, whereas, weather is more short-term. And here we're going to be talking long-term and short-term in a way, because we're not just going to be talking about the dangers of climate, as people are always wanting to know, but we're also going to talk about the opportunities with climate change. Let's talk about that a little bit now, an overview of what we'll be discussing personally when we see each other at the event.
Well, Marco and I are going to be talking about how the recent congressional action is spurring the climate economy. It came right as Hurricane Ian was devastating Florida, but now we have the bill that's been passed, and there's about $400 billion that's going to be invested, and it's really going to spur the climate economy in the United States. It's already doing so. $35 billion of new activity from overseas is already moving to the United States, including major companies that are going to be making solar panels with clean energy. Yes. Right here in the United States.
Yes, and that's one thing you've always talked about is where are the solar panels being made, because sometimes they can be made in places that make them dirty. And we have far more regulations in the United States, and so that stuff's supposed to be made clean. And it's why we don't mind talking about the Inflation Reduction Act in particular. We try to avoid the politics of it, but one thing that Mr. Bunting has always talked about is that, we don't want the solution to just be not even a Band-Aid, but something for show. And you scientifically looked at it and thought it had a lot of scientific thought put into it. So it's something that we have to talk about, because I was even impressed looking at it going, this actually seems legitimate. Right. And sometimes you don't get that with those kind of initiatives.
Well, that's true. And this is the first time, really, in my career, which has been quite a long one, that I can say this, and I'm excited about it myself. So, no bill is perfect, but this helps the United States lead the way out of the climate crisis. And I think that's exactly what we should be doing. It's going to create the climate economy, a lot of new jobs, maybe more than 1 million new jobs in just the next few years. So it's a very important step.
And one thing is, I've always asked him too, why are you so optimistic when it seems like there's always a roadblock? And I guess we kind of saw why. These things take a lot of time, kind of like the climate does.
Well, actually, I think the climate's been changing faster than we have. And we've got to change that now. The rate of climate warming is twice what it used to be in 1990. And the next 30 years are really the time where we can make a difference. If we don't do it by then, we're going to move from a climate crisis into a much bigger type of crisis, and we need to avert that. And I think there's a lot of movement in that direction now, and the climate conference on February 9th is all about how we're going to shift from what we used to do to what we need to do, and in the same breath, I can say, with the opportunity of emerging the climate economy. But first, we have to get through this climate crisis, and we saw it in Florida this year with Ian, and the triple threat of water really was the storm surge on top of higher sea levels, and then massive inland flooding, which has devastated the southwest part of Florida, and that is a signature of the warming climate. So we're going to see more of these disasters, and we want to be proactive about it rather than just reacting to them. We need to sort of plan for them and build our bridge into the future for mitigation later on, where we can lower our carbon footprints and stop the climate warming in its tracks.
One last thing before we give more details on how to attend the climate conference and all that, but would you say in your professional opinion that it would be accurate to say we do have to change, but it's about stopping the acceleration before we actually go down as far as reducing emissions, correct?
I think that's what most people really don't understand, is that the climate warming now is the fastest it's been. And so before we can dig ourselves out of this hole, we have to stop digging. And so that's what we're trying to do with adaptation. Adaptation slows down, helps us deal with the present, so that eventually we will be able to slow down the climate warming and mitigate it altogether in the future.
Indeed, and that stuff's good to know, and we'll be talking about it at the Climate Conference. Bob, always great to see you.
Thank you so much, Marco. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
To attend the 2023 Climate Conference, in-person tickets are $75, only 3 left, and live stream tickets are $50. The event is from 8 to 4 at the USF Sarasota-Manatee campus in the Selby Auditorium. To purchase tickets, go to theclimateadaptationcenter.org. Again, that's theclimateadaptationcenter.org/events.